Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Crossover U College Hoops Talk podcast, which you can find, as always, right here on the Crossover channel. My name is Kanaye, and I'm joined with Josh. And today, we are going to be giving you guys a top 10 list once again, but this time for our top 10 freshmen heading into this upcoming college basketball season. ESPN, of course, always does their top 100. Bleacher Report does the same. So many other services, 24/7, 1-3. They all put out different sort of ranking lists for how they see these freshmen coming into college basketball just based off of what they did in their high school careers. Our list might vary from some of the others you see online, but we're going to give you all some of the background for why we have guys and why we pick them in those certain spots. But before we get into that today, if you like this podcast or anything else you see on this channel, please, as always, engage with our content any way you can. Whether it's liking our videos, subscribing to our channel, or just telling others about it. It really does help with growing what we do here at the Crossover. So to get it started, I really don't think this needs too much discussion. I do know there's a little bit back and forth between the top two prospects, but me and Josh both have AJ Deansa as our number one prospect, high school prospect, going into this college basketball season.
Easily. I get it. ESPN kind of touched around the point. I think they did at some point, and I could be corrected if you want in the comments, putting Peterson at 1. I kind of disagree. I get it. Peterson went off when he played against Deansa, but the high school and college levels are very separate things. And going into the college spectrum, I think there's more of a desire to give Deansa the number one option. Peterson might be the better NBA prospect. I've seen him selected number 1 overall in a lot of draft mocks, but Deansa gives me the college vibe. I think he will strive and live the perfect career. He might average more, but that's just because Kansas is just in a bad spot, and he's going to be carrying the team a lot.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned that. I do feel that Deansa has a chance to be more so in the national spotlight this college season, just because BYU looks like they could potentially make a Final Four with the roster Kevin Young's put together out of Provo. Kansas, Bill Self, kind of not the greatest job last few years in putting together rosters. Of course, this past year, they were preseason number 1. Not that great of a year. This year, honestly, didn't do all too much in the transfer portal in terms of getting good guys that are going to put Kansas back into the standard of what that program is, of being able to make deep tournament runs. So Peterson, like you mentioned, might be the higher score of the two, but Deansa, I think, has a chance to almost kind of play that Cooper Flagg role this past year at Duke. By no means do I think Deansa is going to be as good as Cooper Flagg, but I do definitely think that there is a chance that does end up happening.
I definitely agree with you on that. We're also going to keep 3 the same. This was kind of a back and forth person between me and Kanaye. Cam Boozer pretty much is the 3rd best player coming into college as a freshman. And we kind of came to the same conclusion that of the number 1 options, or number 1 overall picks in the main draft, Boozer, Peterson, and Deansa are the only players that can lead. Boozer would probably be the 3rd best option.
Right. Yeah, like you said, I definitely think those 3 have the most legitimate chances of being a number 1 overall selection next year's NBA draft. Cameron Boozer is following in the footsteps. Both him and his brother are following in the footsteps of their father, who played at Duke. They, of course, are going to be 2 of the highly touted freshmen that Duke landed this past year, of course, with them committing earlier in the season. I definitely think Cameron Boozer is going to need to be really, really good for Duke, too, for them to have a good year as a program, just considering everything they lost with Flagg, Knipple, Malawach, and all the depth pieces like Proctor, Sion James, Mason Gillis, and the likes of those guys. So I definitely think Cameron Boozer should be in store for a pretty solid scoring year. But he's going to need to do a lot on the glass as well. But I definitely think he has all the tools to do that. And like you said, I think he's definitely our 3rd best prospect heading in.
Definitely. We did make a little change before, though. Me and Kanaye are incredibly high on Mikal Brown Jr., who's going to Louisville next year. He has shown so much promise, and 8 just was a little bit too low to put him. 4 just felt like the perfect, not reach goal, because we know that he's not on the level of Boozer, Deansa, and Peterson, but he has the potential to be the best player in the ACC.
Most definitely. And I'm super, super high on Louisville. Mikal Brown Jr. is one of the reasons why. I think he has a chance to be arguably the best point guard going into this next year's draft. I don't know if he's going to be the big-time scorer that we've seen in his U19 World Cup performance, which, by the way, definitely increases his stock in our eyes for sure. It's a big reason why we bumped him up to number 4 as opposed to where other services have him ranked. But I do think in terms of just being a guy who you're comfortable handling the ball in tight spots and being able to play make and facilitate for his teammates, which, By the way, he has a lot of really, really good college players around him, like Ryan Conwell, Isaac McNeely, Adrian Woolley, Casey Pryor, Javon Hadley. I think he's going to put those guys in prime spots to be able to score. And I think when you need him to, you're going to be able to throw the ball to him when the shot clock's getting low, and he's going to be able to go and make a play.
He's definitely got to look forward to. And honestly, probably one of the best freshmen that we've seen of any class at his level of game. As a point guard, and just, I don't know, there's just something about it. I don't know how to fully describe it, Kanaye, but there's just something about Mikal Brown that really hypes me up.
Yeah, and I was telling Josh off a recording, I almost feel in a way I could see Mikal Brown Jr. playing the kind of Tyler Ennis role that Tyler played for Syracuse in the 1 year he played there, where, like I mentioned, he knew he was going to come into a program that was built to be able to compete to get to a Final Four, and he knew he was going to be playing with experienced, really good college players, and he was not going to come in with any ego. He's going to accept the role of being the point guard, where you're pass first guy, you're not always looking to get buckets on your own. But when needed to, I think he's going to be more than capable of doing it. But I think that pretty much takes care of everything we have on Mikal Brown Jr., which gets us into our fifth best freshman going this year, Darius Acuff, who I believe most services and programs have as the number one point guard in this class. He is a little bit shorter than Mikal Brown Jr., which I do slightly, which is part of the reason why I kind of sided with Josh and put him above Acuff there. But he played at IMG Academy. He's going to Arkansas. You know Cal loves to get those five-star guard freshmen. He's going to be playing for Cal. Most of the time, those five-star guards end up having really, really good seasons under Coach Calipari in his offense. I fully expect Darius Acuff to be a lottery pick in next year's draft.
He could honestly sneak his way into that top 10. I get it, the undersized nature of him can get in the way. He is 6'2", 175, which can be a little off-putting, but Arkansas runs a smaller roster anyway. He should fit in right there. Could be a lead scorer on that team. I do see some problems. I get it. But he looks very experienced. And that IMG background is not to look about. It's IMG's always producing a top 5, top 10 pick in every draft class.
Definitely. And in the tape that I've seen from him in his high school games, he's someone who doesn't seem to get bothered by pressure whatsoever. He's a really tight handle, really unbothered, like I said, at times. I think he's going to handle the SEC just fine. And I'm really excited to see him play in a John Calipari offense. And now getting into our next best freshman prospect going into this year, we have Senak Jr., who is committed to Houston, who's be playing a really, really important role. One of the many freshmen that make up their loaded incoming class as one of the 5 stars. He brings great size at 6'10", 230 pounds. I fully expect him to play the 4 to help anchor down the front court alongside Joseph Tugler. I think he's going to be able to learn a lot from Tugler and the other veterans on that Houston roster. I fully expect Senak to have a big year for Kelvin Sampson.
Easily. I kind of see him playing the 5 because of Tugler, but I think regardless of where he plays, he's going to be a starter. He's going to get a ton more minutes than I think a lot of these other guys can and will get, and he's going to be relied on. Houston's not exactly the tallest team. They do have a good amount of height. They had it last year. They kept alive it this year. But you know how Houston loves to rely on every single player. This team is not going to have a sufficiently crazy outside scorer. There's not going to be an LJ Cryer type of player on this team, but there doesn't need to. This is arguably of the freshmen that we're talking about. Senak has the best odds right now, at least, of winning a natty, and he could be a huge part in why they do it.
Definitely. I mean, considering what Houston lost, they were able to bring back some guys, but they're going to need their freshmen to step up. I do love the continuity that they have, as we've talked about on a lot of episodes covering Houston basketball. But those guys are definitely going to have to teach a lot to this incoming freshman class, and I think there's no better trio of the likes of Miles Uzan, Emmanuel Sharp, and Joseph Tugler to help bring along those incoming freshmen. Now, getting into our 7th best freshman going into this year, we have Koa Pete, who is going to Arizona. Easily see Koa Pete starting at probably the 4 for them this upcoming year. 5-star, out of Perry High School. He is an Arizona native, so he is staying home. Really cool to see that. I am really excited. I think he brings a really unique skill set to the table with his shot making. Does possess a little bit of a back to the basket game, and I'm really excited to see how he plays for Tommy Lloyd this year.
True. And I kind of like how Arizona was set up. This is a team set up for Koa Pete. This is a team where he can be that guy, and I think Lloyd knew that really well getting him in there really isn't a limit of where Koa Pete can go and play. He's got the size, he's got the build, he has the backcourt, and he has, I think, a pretty decent front court as well. This is a team that will strive to be the best in the Big 12, and Pete will be every bit as important as anybody can expect him to be.
Yeah, and I love how you said that the team was kind of built for him to be that guy. I know they are bringing in Brandon Burries, who does have a chance to be really, really good, alongside Koa Pete in that freshman class. In the obviously the passing of the reins from Caleb Love onto the next generation of Arizona basketball players. Of course, you do have Jaden Bradley there, who a lot of people, including myself, expect to make a big leap in considering Caleb Love's no longer with the program. I do kind of lean towards Koa Pete as being the main guy on this team.
I definitely agree. I would be surprised if he wasn't. And even if he isn't, he's still a great prospect. This is a guy that you don't really want to count out, especially in Big 12 play. He will be there for those big moments.
Most definitely. And now at number 8, we have Nate Ament, late freshman ad in the, it was early in the offseason, pretty much right at the conclusion of this year, if I'm not mistaken. Tennessee was able to land Nate Ament. I think he's going to be really, really good. I love what they have in the backcourt between both him and Jacob Gillespie going into this year. I think that's going to be a really dynamic duo to have running the show. Of course, you know Jacoby is going to bring a lot of scoring. I expect the same from Nate Ament. It's going to be interesting to see how that kind of works together. But I fully expect Nate Ament to be a really, really good player right away.
Yeah, and I will say, for record, Nate Ament was the 4th-ranked prospect. We lowered him down to 8. Pretty much swapped him, actually, with Mikel Brown, now thinking about it. And honestly, the biggest reason is just because Tennessee's kind of an odd place. I get it, he decommitted and went to Tennessee, so there was a bit of a change-up on that part. But overall, Tennessee doesn't really have that sort of freshman apparatus that other top schools are used to having. And the team isn't really as well built as the others we've mentioned. They're still a ranked team on the preseason poll, most likely, but this is not a team that's winning the SEC like in previous years. That will be very useful. Might be their leading scorer, depends. But I don't feel like he's going to elevate the team in a way that some of these other players can and will.
I will say, though, I do definitely think the door is open for Nate Ament to be that guy for Tennessee this year. The last 2 years, Rick Barnes has had the likes of Dalton Knecht and Chaz Lanier playing at the 2-guard spot to really just be that dynamic scorer. This year, you're kind of in questioning who that guy is going to be. I don't know if Jacoby Gillespie can be that guy. I really think he might kind of just be what he is as a player. I don't know if there's another step that he can really take to really up his scoring numbers the way we saw Dalton and Chaz do the last 2 seasons for Rick Barnes. I do think Nate Ament has a chance to be that guy for them, and I think they might need him to be that guy if they want to have any chance of being towards the top of the SEC and potentially being able to go on a deep run in March.
Definitely. Remember, they haven't made a Final Four ever. They can do it soon, you know.
Most definitely. And now, coming in at number 9, we have Elijah Arenas. A lot of programs and services have him ranked a lot lower than this. I'm sorry. I feel like this is one of the most talked about prospects going into this year, just considering his dad being Gilbert Arenas and how good of a scorer he was. Elijah Arenas might be even better. He's taller than Gilbert. He has great size on the wing. Needs to bulk up a little bit, I will say. But from what I've seen, he's been in runs against pro NBA players and performed really, really well against NBA-level defenders, some NBA defenders. I mean, there's a clip where he's talking about, Gilbert is on his podcast talking about how his son had honestly kind of just cooked Naz Reid, if we're being honest. Naz Reid is no slouch of a defender. Of course, you know Naz is borderline 7-footer. And for Elijah Arenas to be scoring, honestly, at will in the clips I saw against a caliber player like a Naz Reid, who is former NBA 6-man of the year, I think that's very, very telling of the type of score that USC is going to be getting this year.
And once again, can't understate Agent Zero being his dad. I get it, he had the car accident, but he seems a lot healthier now and will be walking into USC in that fresh role. And listen, I get it, we've seen USC kind of fumble with their top freshman. Isaiah Collier wasn't really shown off as well as he could have. Ronnie had his whole thing. We can talk about that on end. But this feels very different. This is now the Musselman era. And I think the team is kind of like how I mentioned with Koa Pete. USC is pretty well built to make Elijah Arenas that guy. You have pretty good guards surrounding him and a good backcourt and front court, I would say, as well, to really skyrocket this team into playoff contention, into the higher echelon of the tournament, which they haven't had in the first year of Musselman. but this kind of puts him on track. And I really like it. I really like where Elijah Arenas chose to go to college because I really think he can be the star on this team and the star that the West Coast is kind of looking for because there are a lot of Eastern Coast teams that are going to be put together in the same conferences and whatnot. And USC kind of has a different mold in a way.
Yeah, I definitely think Elijah Arenas has to maybe end up being the leading scorer out of this freshman class this year. He's a guy that I've circled as one of the freshmen that I'm definitely going to be watching any chance I get this upcoming season. And to round out our list at number 10, we have another 5-star freshman heading to Houston to play for Kelvin Sampson, that being Isaiah Harwell, 6'6", 210 pounds. Definitely needed to add some more depth at the wing/guard spot, just considering what you lost with LJ Cryer, Terrence Arsenault, guys like that. I don't know that he will be in a starting role. It's kind of, it's tough to tell. I definitely think he can be, but I think he's going to bring shot making. They're going to need shooting. He should be able to do that for them. Really interesting to see how, again, these 5-star freshmen kind of fit in with the returners, Miles Uzan, Joseph Tugler, Emmanuel Sharp.
This is an incredibly deep team. As we said before, Chris Senak, this is a team that could win a natty. He can be a reason. Harwell can be that reason too. And you want to talk about the depth that we're seeing from other teams as well. Houston outcompetes most of their teams in depth because they have a guy like Harwell who can come off the bench. And even if you want to compare earlier, and I was talking to Kanaye after reporting, the heights of Elijah Arenas and position as well, and Isaiah Harwell are the exact same. Harwell, though, is 10 pounds heavier. This is a bigger guy who could just body his way around, which is such a Houston thing to do, to have these big body guys just playing the level of strength and defense that Houston is so well known to have. It just makes so much sense to put Harwell in that top 10.
And like you said, Houston's in such a unique situation where they have returnees, they have talent, both probably in their starting roles this year and also coming off the bench. Last year, the one knock on Houston was maybe their lack of talent. This year, they have a surplus of it. And again, throughout their entire roster. And I don't know if there's any team in the country that can match both what they have in terms of continuity and incoming talent in their and it's going to be really interesting to see how Kelvin Sampson puts it all together. And I think Houston's poised to go on another potential Final Four run.
I 100% agree. And it really just makes me question, how did Kelvin Sampson do it? How did he find these guys?
Yeah. Why did the rest of the country let Kelvin Sampson land? What was it, 4, 5 stars, 4 stars? I mean, it's crazy. You don't let Kelvin Sampson do that. And who knows, the rest of the country might be paying for it this year. But I think that's going to take care of everything we had on this episode today. Really excited to see these freshmen play at their schools. Really going to be just one aspect of what's surely to be a really, really entertaining year of college basketball. But again, I think that's going to take care of everything today. Please engage with the content any way you can. And until next episode, we'll see you all next time.